News on the cost of living front in Nigeria. We see data from the MBS shows food inflation has fallen to its lowest level in 14 years, with prices of staples like yams, eggs, and palm oil easing significantly in January. This drop could offer some much-needed relief to households after years of high food costs. Today, we'll discuss what this means for consumers, producers, and the economy ahead. Joining me now is David Ezeonyekwere, is a founder, CheapMarketDeal. Joining me right here in the studio. It's great to have you. Morning.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah. So, when I look at the U.S. consumers, we see the U.S. Fed really close to their inflation target. That's been on the downward trend so far. But the PCE came in hotter than expected. That means personal consumption expenditure did go up. And we see they complain a lot about affordability. And looking at Nigeria, we see the data pointing downward. Headline inflation, food inflation, entering single-digit territory. But there still is an affordability issue with the average consumer in Nigeria. Help us reconcile all of this.
So if you look at Nigeria, so let me start by saying thank you for having me on the show. It's quite grateful that we have events like this that are maybe narrowing towards, let's say, the agricultural sector. So if you look at the price of food in Nigeria, I will tell you from a personal experience that yes, the price of food dropped significantly, but you see the affordability issue is still a problem in terms of families, because if you look at the minimum wage and the percentage of the price of food that is dropping, it's dropping, but it's not dropping to what it was pre-2019, pre-2023. You understand? So it's still an issue of affordability, because even if it's dropping, people cannot still afford it conveniently. A situation where the minimum wage is 70,000 naira and a bag of beans is selling for 40,000 naira, you see that someone is over 50% of their income to buy a bag of beans. Or you see a bag of rice is for like 50,000 naira, 60,000 naira. That's about 80% of their income in terms of purchasing just basic two staples. So that's why you can't say it's even a sustainable trend. And then you look at the price of food dropping, you will now ask yourself, what is making this price of food drop? Is it that it's naturally dropping, or there are some unorthodox, permit me to use that word, that measures that the government is taking that is probably agitating one part of the production sector and just offering temporary relief to the consumers? And so is it sustainable in the long term? And is it much something that can be replicated from not just this administration or something repeatedly overboard? And so the answer is no. And so that's just so.
So what's keeping food prices unaffordable?
So if you look at why food prices dropped basically because the borders were open. You understand? The government gave a 150-day waiver for importers to import basic staples of food. And so that model that was done, it's not sustainable in the long run. I give you this for an example. The previous administration invested a lot of money in rice sector. Let's take that for an example. And let's say we have the Fadamatri refund project and so a lot of CBN intervention programs that were done. When I got to the grassroots farmer, it's a conversation for another day. Let's even start from there first. And then you've seen a lot of people, I know guys that have invested billions of naira in rice factories across Kano, Kebbi, Zamfara, and the rest of it. And then all of a sudden, you are opening the border. So you're not protecting your production, your producers. So you see that now they are now competing with the guys that are importing. And you know what happens? So a lot of factories are being shut down. You see, like even some guys that produce ethanol, a lot of their factories are shut down. So you see, that's why I said it's not.
But food prices stayed high when the borders were shut.
So that's also addicted. That can also be attributed to another factor. And so that factor will now look at security. So if you're looking at the price of food, there are several factors that are contributing to why food prices are rising. It's like a hydra. If you solve this problem, there is another problem that's coming. So we look at, if you're talking about realistically what really made food prices, so there are two major factors that really made food prices to go up in Nigeria. Aside from customer behavior and the exchange rate and the rest of it, we have the issue of insecurity. We have the issue of insecurity. Then we have the issue of insecurity is one. We have the issue of fluctuation in global supply chain. Now, the first problem started with the fertilizer problem. Nigeria, in the agri system in Nigeria, 60% to 70% of what we use is imported. I'm talking from fertilizer, we're talking from seeds, we're talking from to agric input, machineries, China, Germany. We are talking of fertilizer. We get that from Russia, Ukraine, because they produce 20% of. So what we have here are basically fertilizer blending plants that blend fertilizer components. Then if you're talking about drip tips and those seeds, we are from Holland, France. Most of these company players in this industry are foreigners. So when the Russian-Ukraine war started, what happened? A lot of things were disrupted, the fertilizer angle. Now, if you're not talking about the security angle, we now look at the point of farmers could no longer go to farm. We had local governments that farmers were paying, allegedly, as for what we read in the news, paying monies before they go to their farms. And so what happens? So if I'm a farmer, let's say I pay, for example, just because I'm like, so let's say I pay 20,000 naira to harvest 1 bag of corn, or let's say 2,000 naira to harvest 1 bag of corn, just for example. That cost, who do you think absorbs it? You are the consumer, will pass on that cost to you. And so when fertilizer goes up and the rest of it, so these are problems that really caused why food prices went up in Nigeria. Then we have the problem of infrastructure. Aside recently that this present administration is trying to fix a lot of transport system and the rest of it, we all know that a lot of infrastructural deficits happened that made cost of transporting this food become hard.
Right.
And so many other costs. Then we now finally, the major problem we have is lack of research in the agric industry. A lot of, if you look at so many, thank God you started with the US, you see a lot of private sector fund agric research. How many companies in Nigeria fund research on a commercial scale in Nigeria? So these are the problems that make, so you have people still telling you use glyphosate, for example, as anti-herbicide. You know glyphosate has been banned. So you see they have 90-80 data using to solve a 2026 problem. It doesn't work out well.
Right.
So these are the
So we need to get our research straight, at this point to, help, solve most of these problems. I mean, Nigerians can be able to afford food again. Yeah, I missed that. Thank you so much. David Ezeonyekwere is the founder of CheapMarketDeal. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you very much for having me on.